Have you ever wondered why the monsters in Celtic folklore feel a little too real, like they weren't invented but remembered? Because here's the thing, when you go deep into the myths of the United Kingdom, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, even Cornwall, you start seeing the same pattern, the same creatures, the same warnings, and the strangest part, these stories are thousands of years old, coming from people who lived far apart and didn't even speak the same languages. Yet somehow, they describe the same beings. So tonight, we're going to peel back the layers of Celtic legend and ask the one question nobody really wants to ask. What if these monsters were based on something people actually saw? Let's start with one of the most unsettling ones, the Fomorians. If you've never heard of them, imagine this: gigantic humanoid beings with distorted limbs, faces that didn't line up correctly, eyes too large for their skulls, and skin described as ashen, sea-rotted, or coal-black. According to Irish myth, the Fomorians ruled the land before humans. They weren't gods, they weren't demons. They were something else, something older, something always watching from the shoreline. But here's the weird part. Archaeologists have found ancient settlements in the British Isles dating back to before Celtic peoples arrived, and some of those skeletons don't match the typical human body shape for the region. Taller, thicker bones, deformed skulls. Ancient people saw these remains, and the stories began. But hey, let's go deeper. Across the sea in Scotland, you get another monster, the Fachan, a creature with one leg, one arm, and one eye, described in detail long before anyone was writing fantasy stories. It wasn't cute, it wasn't a metaphor, it was terrifying. But again, here, where it gets uncomfortable. There are ancient medical texts discussing rare birth deformities among early tribes. These Barbies didn't always survive, but the ones who did became the subject of whispered legends. People didn't have genetic science, all they had were stories that lasted centuries. And then there's the Black Annies of England. Blue skin, iron claws, teeth sharp enough to bite bone. According to mothers in Leicestershire, she lived in caves and stole misbehaving children. Creepy bedtime story, right, but try this on for size. In the hills around Dane Hills, explorers found animal bones arranged deep inside caves, claw marks on stone walls, and evidence of something, or someone, living inside for long periods of time. Maybe it wasn't a monster. Maybe it was just a wild hermit. But in the dark woods, you don't need much imagination to turn a shadow into a creature. One strange woman living alone could easily become a legend spanning generations. But it gets even stranger when we look at the water horses of Scotland and Ireland, the Kelpie. This creature looks like a beautiful black horse that stands by the loch, waiting. If you touch it, your hand sticks to its skin like glue. It drags you into the water, never to be seen again. Sounds supernatural, but think about this. The British Isles are full of bogs with dangerously sticky mud, deep, cold, fast rivers. If a child or traveler slipped into those waters, they disappeared instantly. No splash, no chance. It was nature that took them, but folklore gave nature a name and a face. But here, where the Celtic world takes a darker turn, the Banshee, easily the most famous spirit in Irish legend, a woman who screams before a death in the family, pale face, long hair floating in the fog. The thing is, every culture has a death messenger. But the Celts described something consistent, a female figure bending low beside rivers, combing her hair, crying into the wind. Some historians think these were real women, war survivors, widows, or outcasts who lived along riverbanks. They washed clothes in the water, often at night, crying quietly. To a scared traveler hearing that sound for the first time, it felt like a ghost. But the most shocking Celtic creature of all, the changeling. Imagine you have a baby. One night something sneaks in, steals your child, and replaces them with a creature, always sickly, always crying, always unlike any human baby. This wasn't just a story. This was what ancient people told themselves when a baby was born with unknown illnesses or developmental disabilities. They needed an explanation, and the explanation was monsters. But I want to show you something far older, far stranger. For thousands of years, Celtic tribes believed the world had two layers, the one we live in and the other world. Not heaven, not hell, just another place. A place with beings that slipped through cracks in the night. People didn't think these creatures were imaginary. They believed they were neighbors. The Tuatha De Danann, beautiful, glowing, godlike beings, weren't fairies like modern cartoons. They were described as tall, radiant, and terrifying. And according to myth, when humans arrived, these beings retreated underground into massive stone caves and mounds. Here's the eerie part. Archaeologists discovered ancient passage tombs in Ireland, built thousands of years before the Celts arrived. Huge structures with perfectly aligned stones, glowing quartz walls, and ceilings that seem impossible to construct without modern machinery. The Celts saw these places and said, "We didn't build this, something else did." And that something else became the basis for fairy lore. Now let's tie this all together. Across the entire United Kingdom, Celtic people described. Giant distorted humanoids from the sea. One-limbed forest creatures. Cave-dwelling blue-skinned hunters. Beings that glow and speak without sound. Water creatures that lure humans in. Underground people with advanced knowledge. These weren't random fairy tales. These were warnings, memories, explanations for things humans didn't understand yet, a way of mapping the unknown world. And the real monsters, they weren't always supernatural. Sometimes they were strangers, sometimes they were wild animals, sometimes they were nature itself, and sometimes they were just humans who looked different. But to an ancient Celtic villager, alone in the dark hills of the United Kingdom, any unfamiliar shape, any strange sound, any silhouette moving by torchlight, that was enough to create a legend. And those legends stayed alive for thousands of years. So the question isn't, were Celtic monsters real? The question is, what exactly were the first humans in the British Isles encountering that left them so afraid? They carved their terror into stories that still survive today. Because folklore doesn't survive unless people believe in it. And people don't believe unless something made them afraid.